Welcome to the Real News Network. I'm Paul Jay in Baltimore. 100 million people apparently watched the debate between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton on Monday night. Much anticipated. It was, in my mind, mostly a rehash of what we've heard over the campaign. But now we saw them face to face say the things they've been saying throughout the campaign. Now joining us for their reaction to it all, first of all, is Rania Khalek. Rania is an associate editor at the Electronic Intifada, and I believe she's in Northern Virginia. Am I right? Yes. And Bill Curry is a columnist for Salon.com. He was a White House counselor to President Clinton. His latest article featured in the Daily Beast titled "Hillary Clinton Reform Candidate? Yes, she can and must." Really, Bill, did you really say that? Here we go. Now, thanks for joining us.
I was actually the headline writer, but it was sort of the point of the article.
All right. Okay. Well, first of all, Rania, your impressions of this much ballyhooed debate.
It's strange to say, but I found it a little bit boring. If it was very light on substance, it was a lot of just like jabs back and forth. Obviously, Donald Trump was very incoherent. I actually don't think Hillary Clinton did very well. I don't think she was very. I think she has like a big problem getting people enthusiastic. I don't think she really got anyone enthusiastic. And I mean, just as somebody who was a former Sanders supporter, I wasn't really excited about her. I think she could have definitely said some exciting things, and she didn't. One thing in particular I noticed is, Trump came after her for the NAFTA stuff. That's really one of his only good talking points is free trade, and it's something that he says over and over again. And it's really one of the main things that is the reason he has so many supporters, aside from all the other stuff he says. And her response to that was not great. I mean, she didn't come out she didn't really come out hard against NAFTA and TPP. She sort of just, she was a little, iffy on it. So other than that, I mean, on the foreign policy stuff or the national security stuff, I was really disappointed in that. I felt like it wasn't a conversation of substance at all. It was just Hillary Clinton giving out her hawkish bona fides, and Trump trying to claim that he didn't support wars that he did. And then it was a lot of anti-Russia stuff. So I just don't feel like there was anything of substance that took place at all tonight.
Bill?
Well, I agree with everything that was just said. I think, though, in the rawest political terms, first of all, I thought Trump took the first half hour, Hillary took the second half hour, and the last half hour by a lot, and that it was therefore her night. And again, as someone who doesn't want Donald Trump to be president, I feel like America might have dodged the bullet tonight. It wasn't a rout by any means of the kind that some pundits were talking about in advance, but it was a solid win. Our entire political debate has been denatured. What I wrote today in the Daily Beast was that I really wanted to see some of the economic populism and political reform issues that Bernie raised in the primaries and that drove the primaries. In both parties, even Trump's campaign, when he wasn't being a fascist or a xenophobe, he was constantly talking about the rigged system, and he had a kind of economic populism that went along with it. He was the only person on the Republican side that was challenging both the political and economic status quo in some way. And Bernie, of course, was the only person who was doing it in a real way. And as soon as they got to the conventions, all the talk of the rigged system just ended. And I still think that just because the politicians stopped talking about it doesn't mean that people stopped caring about it. There is a global insurrection against global finance capitalism and pay-to-play politics. It is in every country, and it's in this country. If she really wanted to put the election away tonight, she could have revived the themes of the primary. I've been thinking that the first candidate to do that would win the election, although I left tonight's debate thinking that under any circumstances, it's going to be harder than it looked this morning for Trump to win.
But if Hillary did revive some of the more progressive rhetoric that she needed to use as she's competing with Bernie Sanders, what do you believe of it? There's not much in her history to suggest that she really is against TPP, that she's really for single-payer health care. I mean, all the things that she claims she wanted to get to, and especially on free trade. She certainly is not opposed to NAFTA. I don't know how she would have taken a stronger stand against it because she was for it.
No, let me just say, first of all, it's a problem for Clinton. She's taken so many progressive positions over the last year after years of not taking them. But when she takes a position, she does it in the sense that someone takes a chess piece on a board. She takes it just to take it off the table for the opponent. And one of the ways you can tell that's happening is that once she takes the position, she never mentions it again, without prompting. And that's true of the TPP. She never raises it. She never raises campaign finance reform. She never raises the public option. At the same time, there is a working document here. And I do believe there's a difference, if she is elected president and we are able to build a strong, independent, progressive reform movement, stronger and more independent of the Democratic Party, basically, than it has been, they can keep pressure. And I think that, so I think those things, single payer, not in a million years. TPP, I have no question she's secretly for it. But a public option, which I think could lead you to single payer in 5 years, on the table. She said she's for it. We could, at 8:01 on election night, everything changes. We're 45 days away from everyone's attention going to the question of how we pressure this system in a new and more effective way.
Rania, if Trump actually does what he says, and which, number one, rip up the Iran agreement, what might that lead to if Netanyahu has his way and Trump seems wanting to please Netanyahu? He got $25 million from Sheldon Adelson. Number two, law and order. What does law and order means? Someone like, or maybe even the actual Rudy Giuliani as head of Homeland Security, or maybe the FBI, or at least that kind of politics running those institutions. Does that enough to make you think that if you were living in a swing state, you would vote for Clinton in spite of what you make of her?
I don't know, and I don't feel like I should really tell anybody else what to do. I just I don't feel comfortable doing that. I will say that, I think domestically Trump would be a bigger disaster than Hillary Clinton by far. I think that he's definitely stirring some really scary sentiments. I think that I was even shocked like a month ago when he came out after he went to Mexico and then came out on stage with a bunch of mothers who'd lost their children to undocumented people and went one after another. It was like a Minutemen rally on TV. And that was really scary to see. And so, he's got this close relationship with some of the most far right-wing police unions in the country. That's really scary as well. And the law and order talk is really alarming. Tonight he said racial profiling was not unconstitutional. So yeah, he would be really scary domestically. But I can't pretend that Hillary Clinton is that much. We can't pretend Hillary Clinton's great on foreign policy, especially. I don't know if she'd rip up the Iran deal, but Hillary Clinton promises she's going to be a great friend to Netanyahu. In fact, she says she's going to take the relationship with Netanyahu to the next level. She's someone who's very close to Saudi Arabia. She's somebody who wants to institute a no-fly zone in Syria, which is one of the most dangerous conflicts in the world at the moment. And it's kind of shocking that that was not spoken about at all tonight. That's what I mean about the substance. I think that, and you guys talked earlier about other issues like economic issues, the single payer stuff. People are really hurting across the country, and you didn't hear any of that. So I really do think that a lot of people, yes, Hillary Clinton did win the debate tonight because Donald Trump was an incoherent clown. But that said, there are a lot of people that are just completely disillusioned at the moment because they're looking at the two candidates that we have to choose from, and it's nothing looks promising to a lot of people.
Bill, Rania, I think, makes an important point that I'm kind of adding mine to hers. If in fact Donald did rip up the Iran deal, it would be dangerous. But this no-fly zone policy of Hillary's in Syria is rife with terrible potential consequences, not the least of a major confrontation with Russia. There's a lot of back and forth right now amongst progressives. Who actually is the more dangerous character here?
Well, Trump's the more dangerous character, and there isn't any question in my mind about that. And again, I read what Noam Chomsky wrote recently, that he was voting for Jill Stein because he lived in Massachusetts, but if he lived in a swing state, he'd He might have to vote for Hillary. And I don't know many Democrats who wrote more critically of her than I have in the last year. This is not the happiest choice of my adult life, but it is. It may be the clearest. And my feeling is that when you see fascism, you have to kill it in its crib. And I don't want the country to have a memory, a collective memory of a proto-fascist even coming close. Having said that, again, I agree with almost everything that's been said here. Foreign policy is her worst suit. I wanted to say there's no one in the major leadership of either party outside of Bernie who has put across an alternative, and even Bernie didn't do this with much detail. But the fact of the matter is that what we've seen in the last decade is the complete moral and practical exhaustion of American military unilateral interventionism. And we've seen without a doubt in the Middle East and across the globe that it's time for us to stop being the policeman of the world, which we talked about tonight. And that means investing in multilateral conflict resolution making. That means strengthening the United Nations. That means trusting not in armaments, but in the rule of law. And I pine for the day when there is a major Democrat or any major progressive leader with a real megaphone to get up and to make that case. I'll point out one other thing. There are two major issues that we need in the progressive side. One is a public integrity movement, and the other is a peace movement. We need those both strengthened. And the other thing that wasn't in tonight's debate really was climate change, except for the one question about whether Trump thought it was a Chinese hoax, and he lied and said he never said it. And again, my Democratic friends talk all the time about the Supreme Court, and they're right. It is enough of a reason.
Hey, let me ask Bill, why doesn't Hillary make an issue out of climate change, whether she'd really do something about it or not, in terms of significance? Bill, hang on for a second.
Obama. Obama's.
Bill, can you hear me?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I said, why didn't Hillary make a much bigger issue out of climate change? 70% of Americans think that global warming's real. At least 53% think it's human caused, and most people consider it at least serious. Why doesn't she make more of an issue out of his denial?
The reason 90% of Americans don't think it, one reason is that in his first term as president, President Obama instructed all of his major appointees not to bring the subject up because he thought it was a political loser. And midway through his second term, he became more of a believer. He finally figured out I think he learned more about the threat, and he certainly began to see that it would be the part of his legacy that people would judge as being the most important. And so he began to work on it. But if you look at his actual energy policies, all of the above energy development, natural gas as a bridge, opening up the Arctic, the fact that we've made zero progress on miles per gallon standards in our American automobile fleet in 8 years, all of its promises down the road. On the other, so that's all. I'm unhappy about all of that. But I also know that if Trump wins, not only does the Supreme Court go, and there are two or three other basic, questions. Fewer poor kids eat when a Republican's president. That's just a fact. But the greatest threat of our time, I really believe, is climate change. Also, the greatest opportunity by moving to a sustainable economics based on conservation and renewable energy. And the only way we can make that happen, I think, in the next 4 years, which unfortunately may be the last 4 years in which we can act, is to have a president who at least cares about the pressure we're bringing. And that goes to the question of how the Tea Party has worked on the Republican side with such effect and how the left hasn't worked with effect. You get up the next morning after this election, if Hillary wins, and you begin a real movement, starting with climate change, going on to the questions of public integrity and peace, all the areas in which he's weakest. People have to, the left has to make clear at last that it has a bottom line, and that if candidates and office holders aren't going to meet it, we're not going to support them. In fact, we're going to oppose them, regardless of party.
Rania, what do you make of that?
I mean, I think he just put forth a really great plan, and I don't disagree with it. I understand. I understand that side. I understand, that people feel they have to vote for Hillary Clinton. And then I get the other side too, where people don't want to. And I guess for me, it's just, I think that what's most important is what happens after the election. And I gotta say, like, since the Democratic convention, I myself have just sort of almost, just stepped away from the election. And I'm just kind of waiting until the election happens so it can be over and we can move on. And I predict Hillary Clinton's going to win. And so, and I do think that it would be far easier under Hillary Clinton presidency for the left to have some room to, maybe not to push her directly, but to organize and be able to do things that do push her. And then, be able to run people at lower levels, and be able to create something independent that is outside of the democratic structure. But yeah, right now it's like the clown show of like Donald Trump and running against Hillary Clinton, and I'm just kind of waiting for it to be over, and I think a lot of people probably are as well.
All right, thank you both for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us on the Real News Network.